Hey guys, here today showing you how to replace a thermostat on a 2003 Lexus RX 330. These are not necessarily hard thermostats to do, but they require a little bit more work. They're buried underneath this here air intake assembly, so I will be removing that, at least on this car. Well, actually on all these engines. This is a 3MZ-FE engine. It's found in these Lexus. It's also found in Highlanders, Toyota Siennas. I'm sure I'm missing other ones, but beside the point, I'll show you what we got going on here. This car has a code. Well, it's not going to zoom in on it. Maybe it will. It's a P0128 code. Coolant thermostat. Coolant temperature below thermostat regulating temperature. These codes can come up on most any modern car, the same particular code, as all these codes are generally universal for the most part. This code usually means that your thermostat is stuck open, which is good. If you have an electronically controlled thermostat like some, BMWs or Mercedes, Audis, those also mean that the thermostat housing needs to be replaced. But in the case of this car and this engine, the thermostat definitely is stuck open, so I'm going to go on ahead and replace it. I already got a replacement for it, but as I was saying before, this particular car is a 2003 RX 330, so some things I'm going to do are particular to this car only, like when I go to remove the splash shield on the bottom to gain access to the radiator drain. That obviously won't be the same if you're working on your Sienna, let's say. So you do need to jack the car up and put it on jack stands. As you can see, I already got it all up in the air there. I'm just going to get ready to drain the coolant. This will apply to 2004 to 2007 Highlanders, same year Camrys, Solaras, the XV30 Camrys, Toyota Highlander Hybrids, obviously the Lexus, and then the Lexus ES 330s. So that'll work for all of these cars. So let's just get right into it. First thing I'm going to do is to I already took the radiator cap off, so do that. You set it aside, then jack the car up, and we'll go on ahead and drain the radiator. I believe the radiator drain on this car is on the passenger side, but once I take this, you'll see to jack it up, I got to remove this here splash. This splash shield right here is just a bunch of 10mm bolts that are holding it on. So once I get that off, then I can show you where the drain is at, so we can let that drain while we work up top. Okay, so as you're looking at the engine, the radiator drain is to the very far left. On the very bottom of the radiator, there is a little wing nut type of deal. Kind of just looks like a, I don't know, like a little knob that you can turn. You'll turn that and then put the drain plug right under, or drain pan right under it, and that'll allow you to drain the radiator. Okay, so while that's draining, I'm going to go ahead and remove this airbox assembly, and then we'll move the battery as well. I'm actually going to take out the battery first. If you just remove the cap here, you can use a 10mm. You use a 10mm wrench to loosen up the terminals. Just loosen up the side and pull them off. Same for the positive. Okay, go on ahead, and then you'll loosen up the 10 right here and the 10 right here and remove the battery. And then just lift the battery straight out. The battery cables you can just pretty much just let sit to the side, out of your way for now. Next thing you want to do is to take off this here plastic cover. It's held on by these small plastic rivets. These type, you push them down in the center like that. There's 3 of them. And then you can just go on ahead now and pick this straight up. This is what I'm talking about here. When you push them down in the middle, it releases the clip. When you want to go on ahead and reinstall them, push the center back. Push the center back all the way out like that. And then once you do reinstall it back in its hole, you'll push it back down to where it's flush like this, and then that means it's locked. So push it down to unlock it, then when it's flushed, it's locked. Oh, there's also one more in the very front down here. Okay, now you got those out of the way. Remove these 2 10mm screws right here holding on this air snorkel. Before you pull this out of the way though, you'll need to disconnect this one electrical connector right here. Just squeeze the tab and pull it off of this evap solenoid. Also want to take and pull this vacuum hose, pull it right off of this little guy and pull it off of the air box, and just let these vacuum hoses sit to the side. Now you want to get yourself a pair of pliers and squeeze this tab to remove the wiring harness, and then there's another tab on the other side as well. Again, this is maybe just particular to this particular car, but this thermostat changing will work for multiple models. Now the next thing you want to do is disconnect the mass airflow sensor. Next thing you want to do is to loosen this one 10mm clamp right here in the front. Don't loosen it completely. There's a 10mm right here on the front of this box, and there's another 10mm down on the side of the box as well. The whole air box should be able to, you should be able to lift up the air box and pull it out of position like so. There are 2 more vacuum lines on the side over here that you need to loosen up and remove as well. They're easy to see, so don't go ripping this out of there before you break them off. These 2 guys right here. And you can just set this box lid down to the side. Don't forget which direction these ones went. Okay, so go on ahead and remove this air filter out of here. Now would be a good time to change it if you haven't. If you look straight down inside this box, there are 3 10mm bolts holding on this box. So you go on ahead and just loosen up those bolts and pull the box out. If you look at the clip that's on this mass airflow sensor, if you grab yourself a pick, small pick like this, and you come in from the back side of the clip and pry it away from it, you should be able to loosen that clip up. Okay, so after you've loosened up the 3 bolts in the box here, go on ahead and grab yourself a 5mm Allen socket and loosen up these 3 bolts that are holding on this engine cover. And you can just pop this guy off of the car. Just to remove this here guy that's held on by 1 10mm clamp right here in the back. The evap hose is hooked into it, so just take it out of its little hooks and then loosen up this here 10. Like so. And then you can either disconnect this hose from here or from here. It really doesn't matter. I think I'm going to go from right here. Be careful with this boot that you don't rip it off. Kind of wiggle it first and then pull it off gently. And you pull this out. You should be able to take and remove this here box. You gotta lift it off of the pipe in the bottom down here. Okay, so as we look at the side of the engine here, the thermostat housing is actually right here behind this here bolt right here. It's this whole piece of I don't know, aluminum right here that you can see, And if you take and stare at it closely, or feel around, there's a hose, a hard pipe that comes from the side and comes right over here to this lower radiator hose. So you will need to disconnect the lower radiator hose clamp right there. You can just loosen that, set it to the side. Okay, the next thing you want to do is we're going to try and gain ourselves a little bit of wiggle room here if you want. I went on ahead and disconnected this one connector right here. I'm going to go on ahead and remove this 10 right here to allow this wiring harness to move a little bit better, and this 10 right here also for the same reason, to allow this wiring harness to move out of the way. And then disconnect this here black connector right here as well. You may have to disconnect the O2 sensor, I'm not sure yet, but I'm trying not to disconnect everything, but I don't like working in such a cramped area, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove these connectors so I can have that much more room to work. I'm gonna put the screws right back where I got them from. Also down here at the bottom, there usually will be like a little plastic connector that's attached to the stud. This one's already broken, so that's good for us. So I am gonna go on ahead and disconnect this O2 sensor connector. In order to do that, you first need to unclip this here off of this bracket, and then you'll be able to release the connector. You see I removed it from the bracket first, then you can go on ahead and release the connector itself. Sometimes these things can be far more challenging than they should be. And now you see that here is all loose. I'm just going to tuck this back here in the back with all these wires. I'm just going to shove them back here out of the way. I mean, I'm trying to be as careful as I can, obviously, but I don't like any of that stuff in the way. So there, that's all clear now. So like I said, if you look straight back onto this housing, it's held on by 3 10mm nuts. There's one that you can clearly see on the top. I can see if I can get a better angle at it for you. Okay, so there's 3 10mm nuts that are holding this here housing on. You can see if you look straight back in here, right underneath these two pipes here, there's one 10mm that's right there. And if you actually stare straight down into that hole, I don't think I can get a better view. You can see that this is the housing we're trying to remove. This housing right here. There's a 10 that's right there. There's a 10 that's behind this here piece right here. You can't see, that's right back there in the back. And then there's another 10 on the opposite side over here where my finger's at. See my orange glove. There's another 10 that's over there. You can reach all of them from the outside out here, just using a long, probably at least a 6-inch extension, a longer one if you can get one, and a 10mm socket. You can reach all of those easily and break them all loose. You'll just have to take your time that you don't accidentally drop one of the nuts. And then if you look over here, like I said before, this here housing goes off into this pipe right here where we disconnected the lower radiator hose, and it's held on right there by a 12. So I'm going ahead and loosen that as well, so that way when we do loosen up this entire housing, we'll be able to pull it away from the side of the head. So I'm going to go on ahead and loosen all these up now. I highly suggest getting a magnet if you don't have a magnet. Excuse the lighting if it keeps changing, it's starting to get sunny out here. There will be some coolant that's going to want to come out of this. So if you're worried about the ground underneath, put a drain pan under it. You need to carefully remove these screws, or the nuts. I'm using a magnet so I can grab them. Okay, that's 2 out. I'm going ahead and remove the last one, which is in the very back. Okay, that's the 3rd one. So those are all out. I'm going to go ahead and loosen up this 112 here on the side of the head. This may not be necessary, but it seems to me like it should come off, and that's why I'm doing it. And so now you can go on ahead and just, like I said, there's going to be coolant. You should be able to go on ahead and pull this little housing deal out of the way. I am not sure you're going to really be able to pull it all the way out. You can twist and remove this pipe out, and then you might be able to maneuver it out. So this is the pipe here I just pulled out. You can replace this O-ring if it's time. This one's good, so I'm just going to leave it like that. And I'm going to try and maneuver this here housing out around all this stuff, like so. So yeah, when we go to refill the coolant system, and well, first you want to wipe all this excess grime and stuff out of here and clean up your O-ring and whatnot before you stick the pipe back in. But when we do go to fill up the system, I'll show you that this right here is actually a bleed screw. So you want to actually loosen this screw up entirely and remove it, and then fill up the system until it'll get to this point right here. Coolant will start to flow out of it. And as soon as that starts to happen, immediately put the screw back in and tighten it up. Then you can go on ahead and continue to fill the system up as you need to go. So some cars have bleed valves, this one does. So this just helps you get the air that's trapped in the system. It'll help you burp it out and get the air out. So we'll do that here in a minute when we get the thermostat back in. So clean this stuff up here. And as you stare straight in there, you'll now be able to see the thermostat. Well, you can't see it from this angle, but the thermostat is very visible. You can see the bright silver right there at the tip of my finger. Pretty much you just pull the thermostat out. I'm gonna grab some rags so I can kind of stop the water from coming out. Stuck in there pretty good, so I'm gonna get a screwdriver and pry it out. Alright, that's the thermostat out right there. So go on in and grab your new thermostat. It'll come with a new gasket around it. When you do install it, you'll see, if you listen, this thing has this little, it's really like a little air vent, bleed vent. When you install thermostats on these particular cars, you want to make sure, or any car, you want to make sure that this guy is facing straight up into the sky. So when you put it in, make sure it's like this. Don't put it in where it's on the bottom. Put it in where it's up top. That helps the air get out where it needs to. So go on ahead and grab your new thermostat. Wipe out this here housing as best you can, just to try and get it kind of dry. And then you can go on ahead and, like I said, wipe off the inside of this here housing. Get this guy as clean as you can get it before you stick the little coolant pipe back into it. So we'll just go ahead and install this new thermostat back into place. Remember, you're putting the little valve, guys, straight up. Okay, so that's in there now. And you'll go on ahead and grab your housing and stick that guy back into place over top. Okay, so I went on ahead and put the new thermostat into place. Sorry, like I said, the lighting has changed, and I now just realized that. Put the new thermostat in. You got the housing in there now. You're gonna go ahead and put on all these 10mm nuts. I did not put this pipe in there yet. I'm going to slide it in this way and make sure that it seats all the way in. So now what you want to do is to go on ahead and grab the hard coolant line and stick it back into the housing and tighten it up with the 12mm bolt on the side. You do want to make sure that you get this completely seated into the housing so that it doesn't leak. Okay, like so. Grab the 12, put the 12 back into place. Just going ahead and put the wiring back where you got it from. So we'll pull all this back out and place it back into where it goes. Take off these two 10s here. And 110 holds this here bracket on. Like so. You need to reconnect the O2 sensor connector. Like so, and slide it back onto the bracket. This black connector goes right here. The ground goes right here in this tin. Go ahead and tighten all these guys up. Like that, and that's all good to go. Okay, so before we put the air box back in, we're going to go ahead and refill up partway some of the cooling system right now. Remember I told you about this bleed screw here. It is a 17 millimeter. Go on ahead and remove it now. Just remove it completely. Don't put it far away because you'll need to watch it carefully. As we fill it up, we're going to be looking right at that hole to watch for coolant to pour right out of it. So right now, don't forget to reconnect the lower radiator hose. I'm going ahead and put the lower radiator hose and the clamp back on, and then we're going ahead and fill up the system right here until we start to see coolant running out of this. There may be bubbles and stuff like that, that's fine, but really what you're looking for is a steady stream of coolant. Once you see a steady stream of coolant, obviously act as fast as you can and then just hand tighten this guy back in here and tighten it up completely. So I went on ahead and removed it. I'm going to put this hose back on and we can fill the system. Remember, keeping an eye out for that to pour right out of there. Okay, you start to see you got a little stream there coming out. I'm going to go ahead and fill this up just a little bit more, and then I'm going to go ahead and cap that off. As it's starting to come out steady right there, go ahead and thread this back on, and then you can go on ahead and tighten it up with the 17. Like so. Okay, so now we can focus on getting everything back together now, the air box and whatnot and everything that we took out. First thing we want to do is to get the bottom portion of the air box back into place. Have to feed it over the over this here bottom portion right here. Shouldn't be too hard to do. Okay, got that back in place. Then you can go on ahead and tighten up the 3 10mm bolts that are holding that guy on. Like so. Don't forget the mass airflow sensor connector. Bring it back up into the clamp right here on the back of the box and clamp that guy on. Okay, next thing I want to do is to install this here back portion right here that attaches to the throttle body. It may take a little bit of maneuvering to get it down in there. So got that guy in there into place. Don't forget to hook the evap line back into its little hooks like that. Don't forget to reconnect this here breather hose back into place. Like so, and then tighten this 10mm screw up right here. Like so. Okay, then we can go on ahead and stick the air filter back in. And then go ahead and grab the box, the lid for the box. A little bit of maneuvering, but you should be able to get it in there. Really the hardest part is lining up this back parts over here. That lined up, tighten up this tin here. Tighten up these two tins, like so. Okay, so that's all tightened up now. To connect the two vacuum hoses here on the side of the box, like so. And then there's also these other vacuum hoses that'll come up to the box as well. One goes here, the other one go over here, like so. Now we can go on ahead and grab the air snorkel, stick that back into place. That guy goes right here in front, slides over that pipe, and held on by two 10mm screws up here. Reconnect the wiring harness connector, and go on ahead and tighten down these two tins, like so. And then you're going ahead and put the plastic cover back over top, remembering from the beginning of the video how I told you to put the clamps back on. Go ahead and reinstall the battery back into position. So, last thing to do is just to put the engine cover back on. Something like that. Left to do now is to just bleed the coolant system. You can go grab yourself some coolant and fill up the system as much as you can right now with the engine off. Leave the car up in the front, leave it on jack stands, that'll help the air get out. Fill it up completely until it won't take any more coolant. Then you can go on ahead and start the car up, put the heater to maximum hot, turn the fan speed to about medium or so, and just let the engine run and fill up the coolant as you need. Try and squeeze the lower radiator hose and the upper radiator hose as best as you can without burning yourself or getting your hand caught up in the fan or something. But other than that, that's pretty much all there is to this. It's a pretty easy job. It'd probably take you about 45 minutes to an hour if you're doing it for the first time. Oh, I forgot to say, reconnect the mass airflow sensor connector in the back. Otherwise your car will run like crap. There you go. So, yeah, if you have any comments or questions, just ask them in the comment section below. I'm not going to tell you how to put the car back down on the ground from the jack. Also, the splash shield on the bottom of this car, it's just 10mm bolts, so I'm pretty sure you can figure that out. But yeah, thanks for stopping by. If you guys like this video, please show so by hitting the like button and share it with your friends. And if you'd like to see more videos, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on your way out. Alright guys, thanks.